Amber Heard has been diagnosed in front of the whole world with borderline personality disorder and histrionic personality disorder. These are no small diagnoses. This morning I watched the entire courtroom diagnostic presentation by Dr. Shannon Curry, and it was fascinating. She is an amazing presenter and an amazing psychologist. I have so much respect for her work, and she presented these disorders so professionally and so accurately. And as I was observing this, I was going back and forth between observing Dr. Curry and then observing Amber Heard, and my heart just went out to Amber, just sensing what it must feel like. I mean, she had a pretty straight face during the whole ordeal, but I can only imagine what it must feel like to be diagnosed in front of the whole world with these disorders and to cause it to appear like you are the one with the main issues that are going on here. And so it must be very, very overwhelming and humiliating, I can only imagine. My name is Monica Maurer. I am a licensed therapist, and I'm also the director of the Center for Transformation. And we exist to help individuals create connection in this lonely and disconnected world. And when I say we exist to help individuals, we exist to help all individuals, no matter what their disorder may be, whether it's borderline or histrionic. We want to help everyone create connection. And I think the reason I felt such compassion toward Amber today is because my heartbeat is to help individuals create connection, not lose connection. And something that we all must understand about BPD is that it's the behavior that drives people away from the person with BPD. However, their heart and their desire is to be connected. Their fear is of disconnection, yet their behavior creates a scenario where they get rejected because they overwhelm others. And anytime you create distress in someone's life, it's going to amplify, and it's going to cause them to not be able to stay connected to you, or to be overwhelmed continually by their connection with you. So just imagine, maybe you are the person that's creating overwhelm for those around you because of your own emotional overwhelm, or maybe you're someone who is in relationship with someone who's creating overwhelm for you. It is on both ends a really tough position to be in. But I think overall that the main pain lies with the person who has the BPD. And I would like to speak about a few things in regard to BPD and how to view people with BPD in both a compassionate yet a boundaried way. What we know about BPD and histrionic personality disorder, they're both cluster B personality disorders, and narcissism is in that cluster as well. And personality disorders are different from your typical disorders of, anxiety or depression, etc. In that personality disorders are pervasive behaviors across every aspect of someone's life that it is integrated into their existence in a way that it comes out consistently in their behavior and affects most, if not all, of their relationships. And so people with personality disorders are not responding or reacting to life in healthy or adaptive ways. And it's this way of relating to themselves and the world that creates much pain and distance from the connection that they so deeply crave. And so with BPD, there's a few things I'd like to discuss, and one that I think is really important is for us to understand that people with BPD are not monsters. Their behavior may be intense and extreme because they are so deeply in pain. They have so much pain. They're hurting so badly. I oftentimes say that it's as if their nerves are on the outside of their body. Sometimes people with BPD actually make up reasons that they're upset because there are no reasons that they're upset. So they create what we call like a confabulation or a verbological explainer response in order to make sense of what's going on in their subconscious mind, because there's so much pain and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. There's other people who have been abused or who have experienced horrible traumas and tragedies who aren't actually in as much pain as someone with BPD. I think that has a lot to do with just the wiring of the brain. We say that someone with BPD has an overactive amygdala. Their fight or flight center is overactive. Their fight or flight center is becoming so overstimulated, even by minor incidents. I heard Dr. Shannon Curry say today that people oftentimes with BPD, and especially when she was talking with Amber Heard, she told her she has an exaggerated startle response. So something will startle her, but her amygdala would stay hijacked for too much time after being stimulated, where someone else might hear maybe a car alarm going off or a fire alarm in a building, and it may jolt them initially, but then their nervous system would settle after they discovered that there's no problem. But somebody with BPD, what happens is their startle response is so overactive that if they hear something that somebody else could calm down after, they stay stimulated for an exorbitant amount of time, and it may create further disturbance for them. I will oftentimes call this fighting dinosaurs, right? There's a belief that there's a dinosaur around every corner. Even though we know dinosaurs have been extinct for a long time, there's a sense of their brain telling them there's a problem here. So we know that BPD is oftentimes passed down hereditarily. Sometimes there is trauma that induces these symptoms. We oftentimes say those individuals who are suffering betrayal trauma from a spouse who has been unfaithful, when there's been infidelity in a relationship, they oftentimes act as if they have BPD, although they don't have it because of the trauma. So we know that it can be produced, these behaviors can be produced by traumatic events. However, oftentimes when it's truly the personality disorder, it is passed down through the family line, through the inherited brain. And so that's something to consider, is these people do deserve our compassion. But oftentimes when we're compassionate, we let our guard down and we become very kind and gentle with people. This is a mistake with someone who has BPD. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be kind. But when we let our guard down and when we become gentle, that is viewed as weakness for someone with BPD. And oftentimes with BPD, a person with BPD is viewing others as an object and not a person. And so if you're viewed as an object and not a person, and you show weakness, then the person with BPD will try to overcome you in order to regulate their own emotion. Everything in their life is about figuring out how to regulate their emotion. There is no sense of ability to internally control emotion, so they have to figure out a way to externally control their emotional responses. So they look for people or situations that will help them regulate themselves. So if they find someone who they think will put up with them, and this is not conscious, this is very subconscious, but someone who will endure their abuses, they will want to be around them and continue the dialogue with them for as long as it will last in order to try to shift their own emotional response. That intensity that rises with the other person can oftentimes create such a change in their emotional experience that they can calm themselves down. But what's happened is then they've transferred their disturbance to their partner or their friend or their family member. And that's just not a fair way to do a relationship. It's not right. So while, my second point is here, my first point was they're not monsters. My second point here is we have to have strong boundaries with individuals with BPD. That's imperative. Boundaries can be kind, but they must be assertive. And in our culture, we oftentimes approach boundaries in a way that is aggressive. We try to be aggressive with our boundary setting, and in that we come across rude or judgmental or harsh or punitive or punishing. But that is not the way to set boundaries. Kindness and assertive at the same time is what's needed. But do not appear passive with a person with BPD. Set strong boundaries. Do not bend on your boundaries. Don't say that you're going to do something and then not follow through. Don't appear like you are strong and then show weakness or lack of ability to really sit with your decision and follow through on it. What we know about BPD is that it can be minimized significantly with the use of DBT skills. DBT is an amazing therapy, dialectical behavior therapy. It's actually empirically based, research based. There is a certain protocol that really works in terms of if clients with BPD, if individuals with BPD follow this protocol, they can see drastic shifts in their symptomology, which will impact their relationships in positive ways. I love DBT. And one of the things I love about DBT is the biosocial theory. I think it's amazing. So I'd like to review the biosocial theory with you so that you can understand how to interact better with someone who has BPD, borderline personality disorder, not in a way of vilifying them, creating them as a monster, separating yourself completely. Now, sometimes that's necessary depending on the amount of and level of abuse that's present and who's involved in that abuse. But other times, you can stay connected as a friend or as a partner with someone with BPD, but you have to learn a skillful way of being, and you have to require very strongly request and insist that your friend, partner, family member with BPD do DBT skills and follow a skillful way of interacting. So here's the biosocial theory from DBT. It asks the question, why do I, the person with BPD, have so much trouble controlling my emotions and actions? Well, there's two reasons. One is emotional vulnerability and the other is impulsivity. Both of these things have a biological basis. It's how some people are born. Some people are born with more emotional vulnerability. They're more sensitive to emotional stimuli. They can detect emotional information in the environment that others don't even pick up on at all. They experience emotions much more often than others, and their emotions seem to hit for no reason from out of the blue. They have more intense emotions than others, and their emotions hit like a ton of bricks. And their emotions are long lasting. If you are that person, or if you know someone like that, it is a very stressful and distressing experience of existence. And so these people deserve our compassion and care. Impulsivity is also biological. Regulating action is harder for some than others. They find it very hard to restrain impulsive behaviors. I mean, if you heard about Amber Heard and what she did on the bed, is not good. It's not a pretty thing that happened. I don't know if you're following that, but yes, very inappropriate. And so they find it very hard to restrain impulsive behaviors. Often without thinking, they do things that get them in trouble. Sometimes their behavior seems to come out of nowhere. They find it hard to be effective. Their moods get in the way of organizing to achieve their goals. They cannot control behaviors linked to their moods. And so I just referred to what Amber Heard did on the bed. She actually defecated on Johnny Depp's side of the bed when he was gone after an argument. This is a behavior linked to a mood that later I'm sure there was regret for, because it's embarrassing. As Johnny Depp said in his testimony, it's bizarre behavior. It's strange. It's erratic. It's impulsive. That's because of the BPD. So what someone with BPD really needs is a validating social environment. But so often they do not receive this, which is so unfortunate. An invalidating social environment makes someone with BPD have a difficult time regulating their emotions. An invalidating environment doesn't seem to understand someone's emotions, someone with BPD's emotions. It tells them that their emotions are invalid, weird, wrong, or bad. It ignores their emotional reactions and does nothing to help them. It tells them, just shut up, stop being such a baby. Normal people don't act like this. People who invalidate are often doing the best that they can. Family members, partners, children. They oftentimes don't know how to validate or how important it is to validate. They may be afraid that if they validate the emotions, they'll get more and not less. They may be under high stress, time pressure, or they may have too few resources. Sometimes there's just a poor fit in the dynamic between the two people, and there needs to be a separation. But here's the thing. Validation is an important piece of the experience with someone with BPD. Validation does not mean I agree with you. It means I hear you, and it must be hard to go through what you're going through. I can only imagine that it must be tough to feel so deeply and to experience things on such a deep level. But what we say is there has to be confrontation as well, confrontation and validation. So here's where that comes in the biosocial theory. DBT says an ineffective social environment is a big problem when you want to learn to regulate your emotions and actions. In fact, that person with BPD's environment may reinforce their out of control emotions and actions, because that environment may, or the person in that environment may give in when the person feels out of control. And because of that, there's a spiral into chaos. However, other times the person in the environment may command the person with BPD to change, but not coach them on how to do that change. And that would really impact their ability to keep on trying to change. So what the person needs more desperately than anything is someone to love them so well, someone to be mature enough to stay in the game with them, but confront them assertively, very strongly. Say, this is what's not okay for me, and this is what is okay for me, and I'm not going to be okay with this behavior. Sometimes it creates a sense of needing to separate yourself from them, but there needs to be a validation of, you're worth it. I understand this must be hard for you. I want to be there for you, and if you can regulate yourself, if you can be skillful, I can allow myself to be in your presence. So these are a few ideas of how to think about and deal with someone with BPD, so that we don't vilify, we don't create them as monsters, but we see them as humans, but we do not become a part of their master manipulative plan and come under their control so that we lose our own lives. Thank you.